Do you have notes on your iPad?
Hmm?
Do you have notes on your iPad?
Yeah, in case. Yes. You ready?
Yeah.
It's time. All right, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you all had a good lunch. I think probably some people will join in a little bit later, which are still on their way. But let's start anyhow.
Hello. Can I have the mic? Hello. 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 Can you hear me? Is it my voice? No? Is it okay now? On the outside, that's okay. Hi, everybody. I'm very excited to be with you today. This summit is just really excited. Just to see all these people gathered with the same focus on open source and energy. That's just amazing, don't you think, Jonas?
I fully agree. I still remember that we were here in 2019.
Yeah, that was just fun. And that's a bit of a change now. We have new people, new faces, and a bit of a story to tell.
Yeah.
So that's something that we are doing today. We have a remote. I take it. So I'd like to welcome you, Jonas.
Yeah. For those who missed my first presentation or I didn't have the chance to speak during the coffee breaks, receptions, or any other moments, I'm Jonas from the Bogaard, digital strategy lead at Alliander and the open source office lead for Alliander's open source program office. And for those who are not familiar with Alliander, we as Alliander are a distribution system operator in the Netherlands. We operate and manage distribution grids. And it's our key task to make sure Dutch households and companies stay warm and have access to energy at all times.
And my name is Benoît Jeanson. I work for RTE, so you are in the premises of RTE here, in the headquarters. RTE is a transmission system operator, so we operate, we maintain, we develop the French electricity transmission network. I work here as an enterprise architect. But my main mission here was to make the connection, because I'm about to move, is to make the connection between the projects in RTE that are involved in open source community and the partners and helping them in terms of methodology. I'm a member of the Technical Advisory Council of the Linux Foundation Energy, as well as you are for Alliander. So, just a bit of context regarding why we are doing what we are doing. So that's, we've talked about that many times during the previous presentation, so I will be very, very quick on that. So that's the context of the energy transition, in which we have a lot of things, a lot of changes that are arriving, a lot of change to implement. And because of that, we understood that the software and the digitalization was at key, and to achieve our goals, we needed to cross the chasm, a big gap between what we have today and the transition that we need to implement, and with the various new digital services that need to be put into operation for the TSOs, but also for the market participant, for the end user, for everybody. Just to make that transition happen. So we want to meet the power system transformation challenges while preserving operational performance. Of course, we want to keep the operational performance. That's really important as a utility to ensure that we can provide power to every user. Should it be industrial? Should it be DSO? Sorry, you're also DSO. People in their home, and also enabling new generation units to come into the system and to be managed. And we need to balance the system at all time. So we need to keep this performance, but having a deep transformation with more renewables, with more intermittent energy. And so we want to meet the power transmission challenges in this way. But when we look at the digital transformation, there are some pain points that are at key, that are listed on that slide. So there are interoperability. We need to be able to discuss within the system, so between the various devices that are at the edge and the centralized system. We need to be also to be interoperable between the companies, between TSO, DSOs, with market participants, with end users, with generation units. So interoperability is really at key. I may add to that point that the standardization is also a part that is really important. So, and open source and standardization should work hand to hand to achieve this mission of being interoperable. That's not a competition between both. We can work together to have this interoperability. I trust really that open source is really something that could help the standard to be better adopted and to also be developed in another way that it was up to now. Modularity is at key also because when you have modularity, it's easier to model the system that you want to design, making use of modules that are already developed by other parties. Upgradability, so an easy way to upgrade our systems. This should be, of course, cost effective. Even for customization, because, for example, we have huge collaboration between Alliander and RTE, and we are not doing exactly the same business. We are not organized the same way, but we can share the same modules. That's modularity, and make use of the modules of the other one, but being able to customize it for our own use and also to scale at the size that we need to have. And we believe, so that's a pain point, but we need to speed up the innovation, and open source is a really great way to do that. So at the beginning of the story, we were very inspired by other industry, and we decided to build an open source ecosystem aiming at an acceleration by reusing what exists and sharing efforts, allowing to build faster and cheaper software for power system sector. Actually, the industry that was really inspiring for us was the network sector, and there was already and other initiatives in the automotive and cloud native. So we were inspired by what they've done, and really the network was very close to what we wanted to achieve for the energy sector. So we could see in this ecosystem that they could improve modularity, interoperability, and evolutivity, having shorter release time cycles. And you know our industry, it's pretty heavy, pretty big, and sometimes slow to change. But in this sector that is also very big, the network is also something that with huge infrastructure and huge needs of software, they were able to be far more agile than what we were. And so they were inspiring, and so we could copy-paste their model in the energy. Aiming at cutting-edge technological and business model innovation, access through collaboration to wider and more diverse skills and to a diversity of viewpoints. And we can see today in this room the people that are here are from various backgrounds, and we could hit that goal with the Linux Foundation Energy. And reduce vendor lock-in and customer-specific approaches that impede velocity and cost efficiency. I must say that we are not against vendor, but that we want to collaborate with them, and open source is the right way to be able, because actually most of the code, it's really a pity that everybody is coding the same thing. Maybe we can share the code for the basic functionalities, ensuring on an open source basis that it's naturally interoperable, and then the vendor can make their secret sauce, their magic sauce, and also provide support. And we would be very happy to have more vendors joining this initiative. So you can see that picture was taken in 2018 in Edinburgh. That was the first Linux Foundation Energy Summit. It was aside from a Linux Foundation Summit. there was very few people at that time. And so we can see that in 5 years, the community grew, and we have a lot of members. Now you can see all these logos on the right side, and that's cool. So we want to shift to a new software architecture. So as I told you, we are pretty heavy. We have old technologies, but we need to shift to achieve our challenges of the transformation with new design. And thanks to the technology, a lot of things are now available, and lots of services are now available. And we can pick up lots of modules that we can just customize and make use of them into our industry. So you can see on the right side that's a bit optimize, control, protect. That's one of the representation that you can have of the various layers that we have as a TSO. So that's just one part of what we are doing, of what the industry is doing. And we can implement all that layers, making use of all the new technologies that are now available on the market, and especially on the open source market. So virtualization, disaggregation, automation, microservices, solutions and platforms, and DevOps, and so on. And thanks to that ecosystem, we are now able to build a new solution very fast and with high quality. So now, again, about the project growth for the last 5 years. So here is the picture of all the projects that are now embedded in the Linux Foundation Energy. So 5 years ago, there was like 2, 4, I don't remember.
It's a lot less.
A lot less. And so here are the new logo. And so, yeah. So now, let's move to the point of the presentation. So the Linux Foundation Archimate Working Group. Our goal, so just, I will introduce the team, so you can see Jonas and myself, and you have Sean Krimis, who is from EPRI, and a colleague of him, who is Job, the last one. You have Laurent and Prince that are also part of Alliander, and Marcus that used to work for the Sonio project and is now at PSI Soft. We were working in a group that was the Linux Foundation Full Architecture Working Group. And we used to meet every 3 weeks discussing of various topics. And one day, Sean came and proposed, as an initiative from EPRI, to model the ecosystem. So it sounds good to us. And we proposed him to make a proof of concept, and he came back like 2 months later and proposed us just a representation of part of our ecosystem based on the Archimate language. So Archimate is just a language to design architecture, as you will see later. That's boxes that are connected and with, but that's a language. And we thought that it was a good idea to extend this proof of concept to the overall ecosystem. So having a big picture of the ecosystem, but also having the ability to make the focus on the project. So that's now a place where we can share the reference architecture and project architecture within the Linux Foundation community. This helps us to clarify exactly. So that's the key point for this work of the Linux Archimate Working Group. It's to clarify. Clarification is at key. Because when you know what a project is doing, you know if you can use it or if it doesn't meet what you want. So it's more than a website. It's something that tells you the boxes of the various functions that are covered and how that could interact with the other projects. So that's really the goal of this overall architecture, is to make the connection between the project, know what the projects are doing, and also identify what are the hole in the architecture, what are the part of the architecture of the needs that we have identified in which we can't find any Linux Foundation energy project. So we think really that having this clarification by this architecture will help the project adoption, foster synergies between projects, and limit also the overlap between projects. But when you identify directly on the overall architecture that one feature is already existing, you don't need to develop it. And we have discussion also with Shell, and for example, it was, I don't remember the name of the project, sorry, but the connection with Fletch Power and how to gather RTID project, so how this could be connected. And thanks to this architecture, that becomes obvious that we need to work together. I want to show you this picture. What you have on the left side is a picture that I showed you in 1999 here in Paris for the summit that we had here. That was the dream that we had at the beginning of this adventure. So that was the various functions, the various software sorted in this tiled map, identifying where there could be opportunities to have software developed under the Linux Foundation Energy. That was an interesting exercise, and one of the things that was done recently by Prince is translate this initial view into Archimate. So if you don't know Archimate, that's how Archimate looks like. And here you have the picture of the actual ecosystem. And that is also the target. And of course, maybe we have forgotten some part of the architecture. So that's a living architecture. We can add blocks in that main picture. But with this group, we also have more details on the boxes. But that's now Jonas that will explain you the next steps.
Thank you, Benoît. So we intended to give today a live demo of the LF Energy architecture model, but we had some technical issues. The good thing is that we as architecture find it important that we do everything redundant, so we have a backup plan. The demo will not be a live demo, it will be a short video.
6 minutes.
Of 6 minutes, where we show you the work of the Linux Foundation Energy Archimate Working Group, and in specific, the LF Energy Archimate model. Let's see if it works.
Now comes the tricky part, the demo. Let's hope the demo gods are smiling today. What's quite unique for the work of the LF Energy Archimate Working Group is that we decided to go for an open source software approach to creating architecture. This means that the LF Energy architecture model can be found on GitHub. As an open source license, the Creative Commons for our attribution license specific, and everyone can contribute. How you can contribute is quite similar to open source projects. You can create issues for bugs or new features. And you can submit changes via pull request. These pull requests are then reviewed by one of the working group members before it's going to be merged in the main branch. And also we have a roadmap that is visible for all to see where the working group is currently working on and where they're making progress. Now let's go to the model itself. The model can be viewed via two different ways. One option is using the open source Archi2. You can find the step-by-step guide down here for how to install and set up Archi. The second option, which is the most easy option, is viewing the model via architecture.lfenergy.org. or by clicking on the following link. Architecture.lfenergy.org will bring you to this view. There are several buttons and links you can click on. However, the most interesting part are the views, which you can find here. Here you can find the functional architecture, the reference architectures, the project architectures, and the meta model. Let's go into the functional architecture folder. Here you can find the functional architecture Benoît was talking about, which provides an overview of the key business functions in the power system sector ecosystem. In the generic reference architecture folder, you will find the different reference architectures. And there's one reference architecture that's particularly interesting: the high-level data flow with data exchange standards. This shows common use data standards from IEC and for which data sets they are commonly used. Another interesting reference architecture is that formula short-term load forecasting, which shows you the different functions related to short-term forecasting and what is important input and output data of those application functions. In the LF project folder, you will find the project architecture of LF Energy's projects. For example, you can find here the project architecture of the GXF project. Or you can find here the project architecture from Archimate Fabric. The project architectures give you a high-level overview of the software components in that particular project, the application functions the software components contribute to, and which business functions these application functions support. In the last folder, in the metadata folder, you find the meta model. And the meta model explains the meaning of the Archimate objects that are used in all previous diagrams. The final thing I would like you to show is that the LF Energy Archimate model is also easy to be found via the lfenergy.org website. You just go to projects and click on the functional architecture link. This will bring you directly to the LFA functional architecture view.
All right. I hope that gave you a quick look into the work of the LF Energy Architecture Maker Group, and in specific, the LF Energy Architecture Model, and what kind of architecture you can find there. Now let's dive into what we are planning to do in the next few months. Our ambition is to improve the functional architecture, work on improving existing project architectures, like Songyo and OpenStaff, but also we intend to include new project architectures and new reference architectures. But we need your input too. The LF Energy Technical Advisory Committee has recently decided that for each incubation project and early adoption project and graduation project, a project architecture in the model is required. And we also agreed on that this will be one of the acceptance criteria to move in one of these stages. And I would already like to thank you for the projects who already took the effort for creating a project architect for their projects. And I would like to do a call of action today to also invite the other projects to help with that as well. And if you need assistance in adding your project architecture to the model, we as Archimate Working Group are happy to help you and assist you in any way we can. And also we are interested in new reference architectures. For example, in the areas of asset management, outage management, or fieldwork management, but also way beyond those areas. If you, in your organization, have a reference architecture that could be of value for others in the community, we would love you to reach out to us and see how we can add that reference architecture to the model so that others can benefit from that as well. And that brings us slowly to the end of our presentation. Today we showed you how the open source ecosystem of LF Energy is grown from 2018 to 2023, where we are today. We showed you the role of the LF Energy Architecture Working Group and the resulting LF Energy Architecture Model. And the LF Energy Architecture Model shows wherefore LF Energy projects can be used and how they can take a role in reference architectures. And we hope that this will help projects adaptation, foster synergies between projects, and limit overlap between them. And if you have any further questions about the work we do, or you want to know more on how to contribute to the work we are doing, you can find us via the various links on this slide. And I would like to thank you very much for listening into this presentation. And I hope in the next 5 years, we can bring this to an even other level. Thank you very much. And I'm looking upstairs. I'm not sure how many time we do have for questions.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. So
Oh, two questions.
There's time for a couple questions. Yes, Tony.
Question, please, about the balance to be had. A question about the balance to be had between physical and logical architectures. This is something I've seen a lot before. So your reference architecture is aimed at a logical architecture, I think, which is generic. But then there's a question as to how abstract that is, and whether you could maybe break it down to more generic components than are already there. Have any thoughts about the balance between the logical and the physical, the generic nature of the architecture?
It's always a challenging balance. So we see that in LF Energy model specific, we focus more on the generic side. That said, the project architectures are a good example of that, and that gives a high-level overview of the projects, the components the project consists of, the application functions these components contribute to, and also the relation to the business functions. But if you want to get detailed knowledge about that project, it's not our goal to include that in the function architecture as well, but there the project documentations can be of use. So we try to balance between the project documentation, which is way more elaborate and provides you all the details on the project in way more specific terms, in relation to providing an LF Energy model, which can be a starting point if you are new in the ecosystem and want to have a high-level overview of how they relate to the general domain. Maybe one last question. And if not, then the other one has 1 minute extra time to get prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.